I thought today would be ordinary. Just another Monday morning filled with coffee runs, endless emails, and the usual corporate monotony. But life has a cruel way of blindsiding you when you least expect it. When your boyfriend calls you during work hours to end things in the cold, echoing stairwell of your office building, ordinary becomes a distant memory. My phone buzzed at exactly 2:47 p.m. Shawn's name lit up the screen, and I smiled despite the mountain of paperwork waiting on my desk. We'd been together for 8 months. Not perfect, but I thought we were building something real. I ducked into the emergency staircase for privacy, expecting maybe a sweet message or plans for dinner. "Hey, what's up?" I answered, keeping my voice low. There was a pause. Then his voice came through, flat and detached. "Henry, we need to talk." Those 4 words. Everyone knows what they mean. My stomach dropped instantly. "Okay? What about?" I tried to sound casual, but my hand was already trembling against the cold metal railing. "I can't do this anymore. Us. This relationship. It's not working for me." The words hit like a physical blow. I actually stumbled back against the concrete wall, my briefcase slipping from my shoulder. "What? Shawn, where is this coming from? Did something happen?" "Nothing happened. I've just been thinking a lot lately. And honestly, Henry, you're boring. Like, really boring. When I'm with you, I don't feel anything. No excitement. No passion. It's like dating a piece of furniture. I need more than what you can give me." Boring. That single word echoed in my skull, louder than my own heartbeat. I'd heard criticisms before: too quiet, too serious, too focused on work, but boring. That cut deeper than I expected. It wasn't just an insult. It was a verdict on my entire existence. "I've tried, Shawn. I've really tried to be what you wanted." "That's the problem. You shouldn't have to try. It should be natural. But with you, everything feels forced. I'm sorry, but I'm done. Take care of yourself." The line went dead. I stood there in that stairwell, phone pressed against my ear even though he was gone, staring at the gray concrete walls that suddenly felt like they were closing in. My vision blurred. I blinked rapidly, refusing to let the tears fall, but they came anyway, hot, angry, humiliating tears that I couldn't control. 8 months. 8 months of late-night conversations. Of rearranging my schedule to match his. Of pushing down my own preferences to make him happy. And in the end, I was just boring. Not worth the effort. Disposable. I pressed the sleeve of my dress shirt against my eyes, trying to physically stop the tears. Crying at work wasn't an option. Especially not when you work for Connor Haze. Connor. Even thinking his name sent a chill down my spine. He was the CEO of Haze & Associates. The youngest person to ever hold that position at 32. Everything about him screamed intimidation, from his perfectly tailored suits to the way his gray eyes could freeze you mid-sentence. He was brilliant, ruthless, and completely emotionless. People in the office called him the Ice King behind his back. I called him Sir and tried to stay invisible. As his executive assistant for the past year, I'd learned to read his moods, anticipate his needs, and most importantly, never show weakness. Connor Haze didn't tolerate incompetence, and he definitely didn't tolerate personal drama bleeding into professional spaces. I forced myself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I had files to deliver to his office in 10 minutes. I couldn't walk in there looking like I'd just had my heart ripped out. I splashed some water on my face from the water fountain on the 5th floor, straightened my tie, and practiced a neutral expression in the reflection of a darkened window. "You can do this, Henry. Just act normal. Drop off the reports and leave. He won't even look up." I knocked on his office door at exactly 3:15 p.m., right on schedule. "Enter." His voice carried through the heavy oak door, low, controlled, completely devoid of warmth. I pushed the door open and stepped into his massive corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, and his desk was an imposing fortress of dark mahogany. Connor sat behind it, his attention fixed on a document, his expression unreadable as always. "Sir, the quarterly reports you requested. Everything's been reviewed and cross-checked." I kept my voice steady, professional. He didn't look up, just extended his hand toward me, palm up, waiting. I crossed the room and placed the folder in his hand, then immediately turned to leave. Almost made it to the door. "Why are your eyes red?" I froze mid-step, My heart lurched into my throat. I'm sorry. I turned back slowly, forcing a confused smile onto my face. Now he was looking at me. Really looking at me. Those piercing gray eyes that usually skimmed over people were locked onto mine with an intensity that made my skin prickle. For the first time in 12 months of working together, Connor Hayes was actually seeing me. Your eyes. They're red and slightly swollen. Are you unwell? His tone was clinical, but there was something else underneath it. Curiosity? Concern? With Connor, it was impossible to tell. Oh, that. Just allergies, sir. Seasonal thing. Nothing to worry about. The lie came easily. Practice. He didn't respond immediately. Just kept staring at me with those calculating eyes. Like he was solving a complex equation in his head. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. I could feel sweat forming on the back of my neck. Then, finally, he looked back down at his paperwork. All right, you're dismissed. I practically ran out of his office, closing the door behind me with more force than necessary. My hands were shaking again. Did he know? Could he tell? No, impossible. Connor Hayes didn't care about his employees' personal lives. He barely acknowledged we were human beings with feelings. But as I sat back down at my desk, trying to focus on work and failing miserably, I couldn't shake the image of his face when he looked at me. There was something in his expression I'd never seen before. Something almost protective. I shook my head, dismissing the thought. I was just emotional and reading into things. Connor Hayes didn't care. He never cared. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Shawn's words playing on an endless loop. Boring. You're boring. You're boring. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through our old photos together, looking for clues I'd missed. Had I really been that awful? That uninteresting? By the time my alarm went off at 6 a.m., I'd made a decision. I needed to get out of my apartment, clear my head and face the day. Coffee first, then I'd deal with everything else. The morning air was crisp as I walked into my usual coffee shop at 7 a.m., a full hour before I needed to be at the office. The small cafe was tucked between two larger buildings, the kind of place that tourists never noticed but locals treasured. It smelled like fresh espresso and cinnamon, and the barista knew my order by heart: black coffee. No sugar, extra shot. I claimed my corner table by the window, the one with the slightly wobbly leg that nobody else wanted. Perfect. I could sit here, drink my coffee, and try to piece together my shattered self-esteem before facing another day of pretending everything was fine. My phone sat face down on the table. I couldn't bring myself to check if Shawn had texted. Part of me hoped he had, maybe to apologize or take it back. The other part knew that would somehow be worse. Going back to someone who thought I was boring would just prove him right. The words still stung. Boring. Was I really that dull? I worked hard, paid my bills on time, kept my apartment clean. I liked reading before bed and watching documentaries on weekends. Maybe that wasn't exciting, but it was my life. It was me. Your usual Henry, the barista called out, sliding my cup across the counter. I grabbed it and returned to my seat, wrapping both hands around the warm ceramic. The coffee was perfect, dark, bitter, exactly what I needed. I stared out the window at people rushing past on their way to work, everyone moving with purpose while I felt stuck in place. I didn't expect to see you here. The voice came from directly beside me. Deep, measured, unmistakable. My head snapped up so fast I nearly spilled my coffee. Connor Hayes stood 3 feet away, holding his own cup, dressed in an impeccably fitted charcoal suit. His tie was a deep burgundy, perfectly knotted. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread about successful executives. Mr. Hayes. I scrambled to stand up, nearly knocking my chair over. What are you? Relax, Henry. We're not in the office. He gestured to my chair. Sit. I sat. He didn't move. You come here often? He asked, and there was something almost conversational about his tone. Not warm, exactly, but less sharp than usual. Every morning before work. It's quiet. Helps me think. Why was I telling him this? I never shared personal information with Connor. He nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the cafe like he was cataloging every detail. I usually go to the place on 5th Avenue. Corporate chains. Fast service. but their coffee tastes like burnt cardboard. He paused. This place is better. Was Connor Hayes making small talk with me? I must have been dreaming. Or having a breakdown. Before I could respond, he pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. Just sat down. At my table. Like it was normal. My brain short-circuited. You looked upset yesterday, he said, his gray eyes fixed on mine. No preamble, no easing into the topic. Pure Connor efficiency. In my office, the allergy excuse was unconvincing. My throat went dry. I'm fine. Really. Just a rough day. You're lying again. You're terrible at it, by the way. Your left eye twitches when you're not telling the truth. He took a sip of his coffee, completely calm. I've noticed it during meetings when you try to cover for other people's mistakes. He noticed? Connor Hayes noticed my eye twitching? I appreciate the concern, Mr. Hayes. But I promise. Connor. What? When we're not in the office, call me Connor. The formality is exhausting outside of work hours. He set his cup down and leaned back in his chair. Now, what happened yesterday? The directness of the question, combined with the unexpected intimacy of using his first name, cracked something inside me. Maybe it was the lack of sleep. Maybe it was the fact that he was the first person to actually ask if I was okay. Maybe I was just tired of pretending. My boyfriend broke up with me, I said quietly, staring down at my coffee. Well, ex-boyfriend now, I guess. Silence. I risked a glance up. Connor's expression had shifted. His jaw was tight, and something dark flickered in his eyes. Something that looked almost like anger, but that couldn't be right. Why would he be angry? I see, he said finally. His decision or yours? He said, I swallowed hard. He said I was boring. That being with me felt like dating furniture. No excitement, no passion. Just boring. The word tasted like poison in my mouth. Connor's fingers tightened around his coffee cup. For a moment I thought he might break it. Then he set it down very carefully and looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. He's an idiot. I blinked. Sorry? Your ex-boyfriend. He's an idiot. Connor spoke slowly, deliberately, like he was explaining something obvious. If he found you boring, the problem isn't with you. It's with him. He lacks the intelligence to appreciate what he had. My heart did something weird in my chest, a flutter I couldn't quite explain. You don't know me well enough to say that, I protested weakly. Don't I? He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table. I've worked with you for a year, Henry. I know you arrive 30 minutes early every day. I know you triple-check every document before submitting it. I know you stay late to help other assistants who are struggling even though it's not your job. I know you take your coffee black because you think adding sugar is wasteful. I know you bite your lower lip when you're concentrating and you tap your pen exactly 3 times before writing anything important. I stared at him, speechless. He'd noticed all of that? You're methodical, intelligent, and reliable, Connor continued. Those aren't boring traits. They're rare ones. If someone can't see that, they don't deserve your time. He paused, then added quietly, and for what it's worth, I've never found you boring. The last sentence hung in the air between us. My face felt hot. My pulse was racing. This was Connor Hayes, my cold, distant boss, who barely acknowledged my existence most days, telling me I wasn't boring, telling me he'd been paying attention. Thank you, I managed to whisper. That means more than you know. He nodded once, then checked his watch. We should head to the office. I'll walk with you. As we left the coffee shop together, I couldn't help but notice how different everything felt. The morning seemed brighter. The weight on my chest had lifted slightly. And Connor walking beside me, his presence solid and steady, made me feel something I hadn't expected. Safe. Walking into the office with Connor felt surreal. We didn't talk much during the 10-minute walk. He took a phone call about a client meeting, his voice shifting back into that crisp professional tone I was used to. But every so often I'd catch him glancing at me from the corner of his eye like he was checking to make sure I was still there. When we entered the lobby, heads turned. Connor Hayes walking in with his assistant at 7:30 in the morning, both holding coffee cups from the same shop. That was gossip gold. I'll see you upstairs, Connor said, his voice back to its usual detached efficiency. Then he headed toward the executive elevator, leaving me to take the regular one with everyone else. The moment the elevator doors closed behind him, My coworker Rachel practically materialized beside me. Okay, Spill. Why were you walking in with the Ice King? And why did he look at you like that? She grinned wickedly. Like what? He didn't look at me any particular way. I pressed the button for the 15th floor repeatedly, hoping the elevator would arrive faster. Henry, I've worked here for 3 years. Connor Hayes doesn't look at anyone. He looks through people. But just now, he was definitely looking at you. She nudged my shoulder. Something's going on. Nothing's going on. We just happened to be at the same coffee shop. The elevator finally arrived, and I practically jumped inside. But Rachel's words stuck with me as I settled at my desk outside Connor's office. Had he been looking at me differently? No, that was ridiculous. He'd just been kind because he'd overheard something personal. That was basic human decency. Nothing more. I threw myself into work, determined to prove I wasn't the disaster Shawn had made me feel like. Emails got answered in record time. Reports were filed with military precision. By lunch I'd cleared half of my pending tasks. Henry? Connor's voice came through the intercom on my desk. I pressed the button. Yes, sir. Come in here, please. I grabbed my tablet and entered his office. He was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. He didn't turn when I entered. Closed the door. My stomach flipped. In a year of working here, he'd never asked me to close the door unless we were discussing confidential client information. I did as instructed and stood near his desk, waiting. Have you eaten? He asked, still facing the window. No, not yet. I was planning to grab something from the cafeteria. Cancel that plan. We're going out. I almost dropped my tablet. Excuse me? Now he turned, and there was something different about his expression. Less guarded. There's a bistro 2 blocks from here. Excellent pasta. Quiet atmosphere. I'm taking you to lunch. Mr. Hayes, I don't think… Connor, he corrected, moving toward his desk to grab his suit jacket. And I'm not asking, Henry. I'm telling you, we're going to lunch. 20 minutes later, I found myself sitting across from Connor Hayes in an upscale Italian restaurant. Menu in hand, absolutely convinced I'd entered an alternate dimension. The bistro was intimate, soft lighting, fresh flowers on every table, and a distinct lack of other diners since we'd arrived during the early lunch rush. Connor had apparently called ahead for a reservation, which meant this wasn't spontaneous. He'd planned this. Order whatever you want, he said, not even looking at his own menu. The carbonara here is exceptional, but so is everything else. I picked something at random, too nervous to actually read the descriptions. When the waiter left, silence settled between us, not uncomfortable exactly, but charged with something unspoken. Why are we here? I asked finally. Connor set down his water glass and met my eyes. Because yesterday you found out someone you cared about thought you weren't worth keeping. And because I wanted to make sure you understood that he was wrong. My breath caught. You don't have to do this. I'm fine. Really. Stop saying you're fine when you're not. His voice was gentle but firm. I heard the entire conversation yesterday, Henry. I was in the stairwell. I'd gone down there to take a private call, and then I heard your voice. I should have left, but I didn't. I listened. The room spun slightly. He'd heard everything, every pathetic word, every moment of me being rejected. I'm sorry you had to hear that, I mumbled, mortified. I'm not, because it gave me information I needed. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. The way he spoke to you was unacceptable. The things he said were objectively false. And watching you try to hold yourself together afterward, then walk into my office and pretend everything was normal, that took strength. I didn't feel strong. I felt humiliated. Strength isn't the absence of pain, Henry. It's continuing to function despite it. His eyes never left mine. You impressed me. Those 3 words did something to my chest. Made it tight and warm at the same time. Our food arrived and we ate in relative quiet, but it wasn't awkward anymore. Connor asked about my weekend plans, about the book I'd been reading that I'd mentioned once in passing 3 months ago. He'd remembered such a small, insignificant detail. When we returned to the office, something had fundamentally shifted. Connor didn't retreat back into his usual coldness. Throughout the afternoon, he found reasons to talk to me, asking my opinion on a proposal, requesting I sit in on a conference call. even just checking if I needed anything. At 4 p.m., Emma from reception stopped by my desk. Eyes wide. Okay, you have to tell me what's happening. Connor Hayes just smiled. Like an actual smile. I've been here 5 years and I didn't know his face could do that. She leaned in conspiratorially. He smiled when he was talking to you on the phone. What did you say to him? I just confirmed his dinner reservation. I said weakly. Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Maybe the Ice King is finally melting. But it wasn't about him melting. As I packed up my desk that evening, I realized what had actually changed. Connor had always been watching, always been aware. He'd just never shown it before. And now that he was showing it, everything felt different. Dangerous. Maybe. Exciting, definitely. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't work too late tonight. You need rest. I stared at the message, a smile tugging at my lips despite everything. Maybe Shawn had been wrong. Maybe I wasn't boring at all. Maybe I'd just been waiting for someone who actually paid attention. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of stolen glances and charged silences. Connor's behavior had shifted from professionally distant to something I couldn't quite name. Protective, yes, but also intensely focused. He found reasons to be near me constantly. Morning briefings that used to take 5 minutes now stretched to 20. He'd appear at my desk with questions about reports he'd never asked about before. During team meetings, he'd position himself so he could see me, his gray eyes tracking my every movement. It was Thursday evening when everything came to a head. I was packing up my desk, ready to head to the parking garage, when Connor emerged from his office already wearing his coat. I'm driving you home, he announced, not asked. I hesitated, my keys already in my hand. Connor, my car is here. I can drive myself. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Leave it. You can get it tomorrow morning. When I opened my mouth to protest, he cut me off with a single word. Please. Something in his tone, not commanding this time but almost vulnerable, made me nod. I grabbed my briefcase and followed him to the elevator. The ride down was silent except for the mechanical hum of the cables. Connor stood close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker, more complex. His car was a sleek black Mercedes, all leather interior and tinted windows. I slid into the passenger seat, hyper-aware of how the space seemed to shrink with both of us inside. Connor started the engine, but didn't immediately pull out of the parking spot. Instead, he sat there, hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. Are you all right? I asked tentatively. Has he contacted you again? The question came out tight, controlled. I knew immediately who he meant. Shawn? No. I blocked his number after the text. Something in Connor's shoulders relaxed fractionally. He shifted the car into drive, and we pulled out into evening traffic. The city lights painted streaks across the windshield as we drove. Neither of us speaking, but the silence wasn't empty. It was full of things unsaid, tension coiling tighter with each passing block. We were halfway to my apartment when Connor suddenly turned down a side street away from the main road. The streetlights grew sparser, the buildings more industrial. He pulled into an empty lot behind what looked like a closed warehouse and cut the engine. My heart started hammering. Why are we stopping? Connor unbuckled his seatbelt and turned to face me fully. In the dim light, his features were all sharp angles and shadows. Because I can't drive another mile pretending I'm not losing my mind. What are you talking about? You. The word came out rough. I'm talking about you, Henry. Do you have any idea what it's been like? Watching you for months, keeping my distance because it was inappropriate, because you were my employee and I was your boss. Telling myself I could control it, that it was just attraction and it would fade. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Then I heard him on that phone call. Heard him tell you that you weren't enough. And something inside me just broke. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Connor, let me finish. He reached out, and his hand curved around my jaw, thumb brushing my cheekbone. The touch was gentle but possessive, and it sent electricity racing down my spine. I've watched you handle clients who yell, work through nights when everyone else went home, remember details about people that even they forget about themselves. You bring me coffee exactly how I like it without being asked. You smile at the janitor every morning. You reorganize the supply closet when you're stressed because you like things orderly. You noticed all that? My voice came out barely above a whisper. I notice everything about you. His gray eyes burned into mine. The way you bite your thumbnail when you're thinking. How you always take the stairs instead of the elevator on Fridays. That you wear a silver watch that was your grandfather's. That you're brilliant and kind and so far from boring it's almost laughable that anyone could think otherwise. My chest felt tight, like there wasn't enough air in the car. Why are you telling me this? Because I can't keep pretending I don't want you. His other hand came up, framing my face. Because life's too short to watch the person you want think they're not worth wanting. Because I didn't let him finish. I leaned forward and kissed him. For half a second, Connor froze, surprised. Then he made a low sound in his throat and kissed me back with an intensity that stole whatever breath I had left. His hands slid from my face to my hair, fingers tangling in it, pulling me closer despite the console between us. I grabbed his shirt, wrinkling the expensive fabric, not caring about anything except the feeling of his mouth on mine. The kiss was nothing like the few I'd shared with Shawn. Those had been pleasant, comfortable. This was desperate and consuming. Like Connor was trying to prove something, claim something. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead against mine. You're mine now, he said, and it wasn't a question. Tell me you understand that. I understand. And I did. Whatever this was between us, it wasn't casual. It wasn't something either of us could walk away from. He kissed me again, softer this time, almost reverent. Then he pulled back and started the car without another word. We drove to my apartment in silence, but his hand found mine across the console and held it the entire way. When he pulled up outside my building, I didn't want to leave. Didn't want to break whatever spell had been cast in that dark parking lot. Tomorrow, Connor said, his thumb rubbing circles on the back of my hand, we figure out what this means, what we are. But tonight, just know that you're not alone anymore. Whatever happens, I'm here. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Then I got out of the car and walked to my door on shaky legs. When I turned back, Connor was still there, watching to make sure I got inside safely. He didn't drive away until I'd locked the door behind me. I leaned against it, my lips still tingling, my mind racing. Connor Haze had kissed me, had told me he'd been watching me for months, had declared me his with a certainty that should have been terrifying but instead felt like coming home. I touched my mouth, remembering the feeling of his hands in my hair, the desperation in his kiss. Everything had changed. There was no going back to the way things were, and I didn't want to. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My stomach dropped, thinking it might be Shawn finding another way to contact me. But when I opened it, I saw a different message entirely. Sleep well. Tomorrow everything changes. I saved his number immediately, a smile spreading across my face despite the chaos of emotions swirling in my chest. Tomorrow, everything would change. But maybe, for once, change would be good. I fell asleep that night with his words echoing in my mind. You're mine now. And the terrifying, exhilarating truth was that I wanted to be. I woke up Friday morning to my phone ringing insistently. Half asleep, I grabbed it from my nightstand and squinted at the screen. Unknown number. Again, my finger hovered over the decline button. But something made me answer. Hello, Henry, don't hang up. Shawn's voice hit me like cold water. I know you blocked me, but we need to talk. I'm outside your building. Please, just give me 5 minutes. My stomach dropped. How do you know where I live? Does it matter? I'm here. I came to apologize properly. To fix this. There was a desperate edge to his voice I'd never heard before. Please. Henry. 5 minutes. I should have hung up. Should have called security. Instead, I found myself getting dressed in a daze. Jeans and a t-shirt since it was Friday and the office had a casual dress code. My hands shook as I brushed my teeth, ran fingers through my hair. What was I doing? Why was I even considering facing him? Because you need closure. A voice in my head whispered. You need to end this properly so you can move forward. With Connor. The thought steadied me. Whatever Shawn wanted, it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't the same person who'd cried in that stairwell 4 days ago. I took the elevator down, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. Shawn was waiting on the sidewalk and he looked terrible. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. He was holding a bouquet of supermarket flowers, sad, drooping carnations that looked like they'd been sitting in a bucket too long. Henry. His face lit up when he saw me. Thank God. I was worried you wouldn't come down. You have 5 minutes. I crossed my arms, staying several feet away. Then I'm going back inside. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. The words tumbled out fast. Rehearsed. Breaking up with you was stupid. I don't know what I was thinking. You're not you're stable. Reliable. That's good, right? That's what relationships need. Each word made me angrier. Is that supposed to make me feel better? You're basically saying I'm like a solid investment portfolio. No, that's not. He stepped closer and I stepped back. What I mean is I took you for granted. I didn't appreciate what I had. But I do now. We can start over. Go back to how things were. How things were. I repeated slowly. You mean when you felt nothing being with me? When you compared dating me to dating furniture? He winced. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. Come on, Henry. We were together 8 months. That has to count for something. It does count. It taught me what I don't want. I was surprised by how steady my voice was. I don't want someone who only wants me back because they think no one else will. I don't want to be someone's safe option. That's not what you are. His voice rose, frustrated. I love you. No, you don't. The certainty in my own words surprised me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have made me feel like I wasn't enough. I turned to walk away, done with the conversation, but Shawn grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but insistent. Wait. Just wait. Is there someone else? Is that what this is about? Before I could answer, a car door slammed. I turned and felt my heart skip. Connor was striding across the sidewalk toward us and he looked furious. He was dressed in a full charcoal suit despite it being Friday. Every inch the powerful CEO, and his gray eyes were locked on Shawn's hand around my wrist like it was a personal offense. Let him go. Connor's voice was deadly quiet. The kind of calm that preceded storms. Now, Shawn dropped my wrist immediately, confusion crossing his face. Who are you? Connor didn't answer him. Instead, he moved directly into my space, one hand sliding around my waist and pulling me against his side. The gesture was unmistakably possessive, claiming, "Are you okay?" he asked me, his voice softening. "I'm fine," I managed, very aware of Shawn watching us with growing understanding. Wait, Shawn's voice rose. Wait a second. This is the guy? Your boss? You're dating your boss? He looked between us and something ugly twisted his features. Wow, Henry. I didn't think you had it in you. How long has this been going on? Were you cheating on me? Connor's hand tightened on my waist, and when he spoke, his voice could have cut glass. He didn't cheat on anyone, but he has moved on, which is something you're going to have to accept. Henry is with me now, and this conversation is over. I don't believe this. Shawn laughed, but it sounded forced. This is insane. Henry, come on. You can't seriously be with him. He's your boss. This is a workplace thing. It won't last. That's enough. I found my voice, stepping forward slightly. Connor is right. I've moved on. What we had is over, and it was over the moment you decided I wasn't worth your time. Now leave, please. Shawn stared at me, at Connor's arm still around my waist, at the way I was standing closer to Connor than I ever stood to him. Something crumbled in his expression, realization that he'd truly lost. You're making a mistake, he said weakly. The only mistake I made was not recognizing my worth sooner. I met his eyes steadily. Goodbye, Shawn. He looked like he wanted to argue more. But Connor shifted, his body language making it clear he was done being patient. Shawn finally dropped the flowers on the ground and walked away. His shoulders slumped. We watched until he disappeared around the corner. Only then did Connor turn me to face him, both hands coming up to cup my face, checking me over like he was searching for injuries. Did he hurt you? Your wrist? I'm fine. He didn't hurt me. I realized I was shaking slightly, adrenaline crashing through my system. What are you doing here? How did you know? I came to pick you up for work. Saw his car parked out front. His jaw was tight. I was about to come down anyway, but then I saw him grab you and He trailed off, taking a breath. I don't like seeing other people touch what's mine. The possessiveness in his tone should have bothered me. Instead, it sent warmth spreading through my chest. What's yours? Connor's eyes darkened. Yes. Mine. Is that going to be a problem? I thought about it for exactly half a second. No. No problem at all. He kissed me right there on the sidewalk, in broad daylight where anyone could see. Deep and claiming and absolutely perfect. When we broke apart, I was breathless and smiling. Come on, Connor said, taking my hand and leading me toward his car. Let's go to work. We have some things to figure out. As we drove toward the office, his hand never left mine. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt completely certain about something. This us was real. And it was just beginning. The weekend passed in a strange bubble of reality. Connor took me to dinner Friday night. Not somewhere flashy but a quiet restaurant where we could actually talk. We discussed logistics, how to handle things at work, whether to tell HR, what boundaries we needed to set. It was practical and mature. And underneath it all was the constant electric current of attraction that made it hard to focus on anything else. Saturday he showed up at my apartment with coffee and bagels, and we spent the day doing nothing important. Watching movies, talking about everything and nothing. Existing in each other's space without the pressure of the office around us. He kissed me slowly on my couch, his hands gentle in my hair, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. But there was something unspoken between us. 3 words that hung in the air, heavy and unacknowledged. I felt them every time he looked at me. Every time his hand found mine automatically. Every time he smiled that small private smile that was only for me. By Monday I was going crazy with it. We arrived at work separately, his idea to avoid too much gossip too fast. But the moment I sat down at my desk the intercom buzzed. Henry. My office, please. I grabbed my tablet and headed in, closing the door behind me. Connor was standing by his window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. He didn't turn when I entered. We need to talk about something, he said. My stomach dropped. Those words never led anywhere good. Okay, this week has been. He paused, searching for words. Unexpected, intense, moving fast. Oh God. He was getting cold feet. He was going to say this was a mistake, that we should go back to being professional, that he'd gotten caught up in the moment, but I'm in love with you. The words stopped my spiral completely. I stared at his back, certain I'd misheard. What? Connor turned to face me and his expression was more open than I'd ever seen it. Vulnerable. I'm in love with you. I have been for a while now, though I only admitted it to myself recently, and I know this is fast. I know we've only been officially together for a few days, but I also know what I feel. I've never been uncertain about anything important in my life. And I'm not uncertain about this. My throat had gone completely dry. Connor, let me finish. He crossed the space between us slowly. When I heard that phone call last week, when I heard someone tell you that you weren't enough, it physically hurt. Because you're everything. You're the first person I think about in the morning and the last person I think about before I sleep. You make me laugh, which people will tell you almost never happens. You challenge me. You make me want to be better. Softer. More human. His hand came up to cup my cheek. I love you. Complete. Absolutely. And I need you to know that before we go any further. I couldn't breathe. My eyes were burning with tears I was fighting to hold back. Why are you telling me this now? Because I don't want there to be any confusion about what this is. About what you mean to me. His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped despite my best efforts. You deserve to know exactly how I feel. You deserve someone who's certain about you. The last piece of my heart that had been holding back crumbled completely. I love you too, I whispered. I think I have since you sat down in that coffee shop and told me I wasn't boring. Maybe even before that without realizing it. All those months of being terrified of you. Maybe part of it was because I felt something I wasn't supposed to feel. Connor's entire face transformed. He smiled, really smiled. Not the small, controlled expressions I was used to, but a genuine, blazing smile that made him look younger and impossibly handsome. Say it again, he demanded softly. I love you. It was easier the second time. I love you, Connor Hayes. He kissed me then, and it was different from every other kiss we'd shared. This one was a promise. A commitment. This was the kiss that marked the beginning of something real and permanent and terrifying in the best possible way. When we finally broke apart, I was laughing breathlessly. We're really doing this? The CEO and his assistant? That's such a cliché. I don't care about clichés. Connor's arms were around me, holding me close. I care about you. Everything else is just details we'll figure out. What about work? People are going to talk. They already have been. Let them talk. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. I'll speak with HR this week. Make sure everything is above board. If necessary, we can restructure so you're not directly reporting to me, though I'd prefer to keep you close. But Henry? He pulled back to look at me seriously. I won't let this cost you your career. If anyone suggests you got your position because of our relationship, I'll shut that down immediately. Your work speaks for itself. I know. And I did. Connor would never let anyone diminish my accomplishments. I'm not worried about that. Then what are you worried about? I thought about it. Honestly, nothing. For the first time in a long time, I'm not worried about anything. His arms tightened around me. Good. That's how it should be. We stood there in his office, wrapped around each other, and I thought about the journey that had brought us here. A week ago, I'd been crying in a stairwell, convinced I was boring and unlovable. Now I was in the arms of a man who looked at me like I hung the stars, who declared his love in the middle of a Monday morning with absolute certainty. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? For seeing me. Really seeing me. Not the version of myself I show everyone else, but the real me. Connor's hand came up to tangle in my hair, tilting my head back so he could look into my eyes. That's the only version I've ever seen. The real you is the only version that matters. He kissed me again, slow and deep, and I let myself fall completely into it. Into him. Into us. Outside the office, work continued. Phones rang, keyboards clicked, meetings happened. But inside this room, in this moment, nothing existed except the two of us and the love we'd finally admitted out loud. The Ice King had melted, and I had melted right along with him. We were in love. Completely. Utterly. Undeniably. And for the first time in my life I knew exactly where I belonged.